Hello, beautiful people. It's Karen here. I hope you are having a sublime day. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a peach cobbler. This cobbler is so amazing because it's so simple to make and requires practically little to no prep time. I even use frozen peaches, so it cuts down on the prep time even further. I'll talk to you a little later about that. Before we get started mixing, let's go over the ingredient list so you know exactly what you need for this super simple but amazingly delicious peach cobbler. Very few ingredients, so it's not going to be a pain to make. We're going to do this in two stages. One is the filling and the second is the topping. So for the filling, you need peaches, you need a 1/4 cup of sugar, and a couple squeezes of lemon juice, and that's all you need for the filling. Now, we next move on to the topping. For the topping, you need 1 cup of flour, 3/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of melted butter, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. You might need a little bit of milk if your batter is not as crumbly as you like, but you'll figure that out once you start mixing it. And that's it. That's all the ingredients you need. Super simple. These are ingredients you more than likely already have in your home, and let's get started. This last ingredient is not actually a requirement for your peach cobbler, but I like to add it at the end. It's turbinado sugar. If you add turbinado sugar at the very end and then pop your cobbler under the broiler, it actually makes for a very crispy and crunchy crust, which is actually sugar that you have caramelized under the broiler. So I like to do that because it gives you a nice brown, golden, crunchy, just absolutely delicious topping for that peach cobbler. So again, that's not a necessary requirement, and you don't have to buy turbinado sugar, but if you've got it in the house or if you'd like to add a little bit of extra to your cobbler, go ahead and pick some up and add that as the final step. The prep time for this cobbler is only about 15 minutes. So that's what makes it absolutely perfect for any time. You can do it on a weekday night. You can do it when people unexpectedly pop in. I've got friends that always pop in unexpected. I give them dinner, and then suddenly afterwards, there's someone sitting around looking like a little lost puppy. And you can tell they're simply going, is there something sweet around? Is there something sweet around? So again, this is the perfect dish. A friend of mine has a lot of fruit trees in his backyard, so I always keep some frozen fruit in my freezer. I just freeze them whole. I wash them and pop them in the freezer whole. And you pop them out, you simply use them from frozen. The only thing you have to do is to cut them into bite-sized pieces, and you're ready to go. These are super sweet because I freeze them at the height of their ripeness, so they are absolutely amazing. So we're going to just chop a few of these up, and then we'll be ready to go. So that was pretty quick. We've got all of our peaches chopped, and this is super simple because again, you do not need to use a lot of different pans. We're going to put the peaches directly into the pan that we're going to bake it in. So prior to starting this, preheat your oven to 350 degrees prior to starting to chop your peaches. Now we've got our peaches all chopped. We are going to toss them into the buttered pan that we are going to bake the cobbler in. So you toss them right in. Then you add your lemon juice. This is about 2 to 3 teaspoons of lemon juice, so it's about half a lemon, depending upon the size of the lemons that you are going to use. So we're going to pour that lemon juice over the peaches. And next we're simply going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar to this mixture. And again, it's all done directly in the pan that you are baking with. We have a 1/4 cup of sugar, and as I said, we are going to add that directly to the peaches. Just sprinkle it over. Going to give that a quick mix. And that's the full extent of the prep for your filling. Some people prefer their cobbler a bit thicker and not as juicy or runny. I'm one of those people. So in order to get your cobbler a little bit thicker consistency, add a cornstarch slurry to the mixture. And when I say slurry, I simply mean add 1 or 2 teaspoons of cornstarch to a bowl and mix it with water. And you want to mix it with water prior to just adding the cornstarch directly to your cobbler, because this way you won't have any lumps. It will be smooth and you won't have any instances where someone suddenly gets a taste of cornstarch. So I'm doing that. I'm going to add my cornstarch slurry, and then we're going to set this aside and mix up the topping. So at this point, we want to mix our 1 cup of flour, our 3/4 cup of sugar, our 1 teaspoon of baking powder, the 1 teaspoon of salt, which I've already added, and the 1 teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to mix this all up, get it nice and uniform prior to adding our butter. I also grabbed some milk just in case it's not as crumbly as I'd like. That seems to be thoroughly mixed. So let's slowly add the butter. It's looking like I might not need any milk. And no milk was needed. This is a lovely cookie dough consistency, which is what you'd like the topping mixture to look like. So with this, you can simply drop it with spoons with a spoon on top, or you can use your fingers, whichever you prefer. I think I'm actually going to use my fingers. It'll be a lot quicker and I can get it exactly where I want it if I use my hands. So I like to get it all in the corners so that there's nothing that doesn't get a little bit of this topping. Okay, that looks good. So, as I said, we're going to pop this in the oven at about 350 degrees. You initially want to check it at about 25 minutes. If at 25 minutes the edges are not all bubbly and juicy, what you can do is add about 2 tablespoons of melted butter over the top. That will coax some of the juiciness out of your fruit, because if it's not juicy and bubbly at about 25 minutes, that means that your fruit, and in this case the peaches, were probably a little bit firm. I know that that's not the case with these peaches, so I'm pretty sure I won't have to do that. But if you, when you're cooking, you come across a situation where your cobbler is not as juicy and bubbly as you'd like at about 25 minutes, then that's the step that you can add. So I'm going to pop this in the oven and I'll see you back in about a half hour. Now this has been in the oven about 35 minutes and it is lovely and juicy and bubbly. I've pulled it out and I am going to sprinkle it with a little bit of turbinado sugar, and then I'm going to pop it back in the oven for another 10 minutes. After which I'm going to pull it out and then put it in the broiler for a little bit so that it gets really nice and brown. And as I said, this is going to give you that nice crunchy crust on top. It's already starting to brown, but this turbinado sugar is just going to take it to the next level. And you don't need a whole ton of this, so just about, 2 tablespoons if you'd like, a little bit more. If your peaches weren't quite as ripe and sweet, you might add a 1/3 tablespoon, but no more than that, because you don't want this to be super sticky sweet. You just want a nice crispy crust. So that's done, and I'm going to pop it back in the oven for, as I said, 10 minutes. I just pulled it out after 10 minutes of being in the oven at 350 with the turbinado sugar on it. I am now going to pop it into the broiler for about 5 minutes, and that's going to get it nice and brown and lovely. The top is already crispy and it's getting a nice lovely crust, but putting it under the broiler is just really going to amp up that crispiness. When you put it under the broiler, make sure you watch it, because you do not want this to burn. You don't want to have gone through all of this work and then suddenly you've left it under the broiler too long. So just check it maybe every 2 minutes or so to make sure, because every stove is different. It's out, it's done. You have a lovely peach cobbler in less than an hour, and that's including all of the prep time. Prep time from start to finish, 45 minutes, and it's done. So as I said, perfect dessert for any day of the week. Hello, beautiful people. This is Karen wishing you a sublime day. I hope you found this video interesting in some respect. If so, hit the subscribe button. That way you never miss one of my recipes. Until next time, think sublime thoughts.